everyone. Welcome to the first gathering of Pragna Cultural Society's interactive sessions. My name is Netra, and I am one of the members of Pragna Cultural Society's youth team. We have two more members of the youth team with us today, Samira and Aman. Today we have a special guest. Please welcome Harish Bayana. We are very thankful for your presence today. Before we get started, let me give a brief introduction about Harish. He is a college freshman at the University of Pennsylvania, a private Ivy League research university. Harish graduated high school as a National AP Scholar and a National Merit Finalist. He was accepted to many universities and got a full college grant for at least 5 of them. He was also accepted to several BS and MD programs. Harish is planning on double majoring in biochemistry and biophysics. Today, we will be asking questions that we collected through the Google form.
So you briefly mentioned you were talking about the school counselors and how that helped you. So in terms of specifically writing an essay and just the entire preparing applications and the various types of applications, what exactly did you do to prepare, and how did you prepare for it, and what did you do to sort of set up your essays and sort of think about what you're going to put on the application? So how did you go about that entire process?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm gonna start. So I say, after you've already taken your SAT and ACT and all that, towards the end of my junior year, I started getting a list of colleges ready. I did some research about what type of college I was actually interested in, whether you want to go to a big school, a medium school, small school, if you want research there, what other opportunities you want there, if you want to stay near, go to a city, go far away. That's just everything you need to discuss. So I made a huge Excel spreadsheet of all these different colleges I was looking at. And once I narrowed that down, I started looking to specifics, does this school have a program I can apply to, or do they have this? And then over the summer, I spent the majority of my summer working on just my Common App essay. That's the central essay you write that you're going to send to almost all of your schools. So I'd say spend the majority of your time over the summer working on that. And then once Common App opens, they open in the beginning of the school year, I think in August. Then as schools release their application, then you can start working on those one at a time. But just make sure you spend enough time on each essay. You don't want to rush anything and not have time for it. Just make sure you have your schedule set up correctly. And the biggest thing is just being organized, because if you're disorganized, it's hard to maintain everything. It's hard to make sure you get everything done. But in terms of that, I had, after I finished each of my essays, I'd have, for example, my mom look over it, or for some of the big essays, like my Common App essay and other big schools, I would give them to my teacher or a school counselor, and they would look over it and they'd give it back to me, give me some feedback. Oh, change this, maybe change that. And just starting over the summer gave me a few months just of time to work out my Common App essay, which that really helped with just creativity. It gave me time to just think about what I want to write instead of being forced to rush it in a week and a half. And it gave me time to just come back and make revisions just to make it as good as it can be.
Thank you. That honestly, that's a very detailed explanation of the entire process. And I also wanted to draw to attention how you mentioned the entire being more organized and trying to just go about it a lot earlier, in the beginning, like you said, at the end of your junior year, you were talking about starting it then, and then you had a few months. So again, speaking of when you started and giving yourself that time, so how early did you begin thinking about this application process, and when did you actually start doing like you said, the Excel sheets and actually trying to make it a reality?
Okay, so I mean, throughout the beginning of high school, it was mainly just doing whatever I was interested in. If I like this club, I'm just going to join it, try it out, see if I like it. That's how I got into research, just because I wanted to try it, see if I liked it. I volunteered in hospitals, shadowed doctors. And then I started thinking about maybe sophomore year, started really thinking about the application process. Just hey, I need to apply to college. Maybe I should start building my resume. So I made sure to keep track of what I was doing and all that. Then junior year, I took my SAT. I did well on that. And then the end of junior year was when I really started thinking about colleges, narrowing down my list into what I wanted. And I say the summer is when you really set your foundation for a good application season in the fall. Because if you start late, you're just going to find yourself cramping everything together. You give yourself a day or two per essay, and it's just really not going to go well.
Thank you. And also you briefly mentioned like how like in the beginning of high school you were like doing things you were interested in, and like one of those things was research, and you were like participating in clubs like that. So in your application, how did you specifically make it stand out and like show that you were interested in research, and like how did that translate into your application?
Yeah, that's a good question. So for me, when I was in high school, I wasn't really sure on research for a while. I was actually wanting to be a doctor for the longest time. So the biggest thing for me was I had a lot of like volunteering experience. So I made sure to mention that in your Common App section, you have the different section about like your achievements and your favorite activity, like extracurricular activities. So in that, I made sure to mention all the different volunteering hours I have, and then also the shadowing experience I have. And then the research I also threw in there. And I also put both those in my resume just to show that I was really like invested in the sciences and I wanted to go into the field. And then a lot of times for different schools, they'll ask you specifically, oh, why do you want to, like, what specific field do you want to go into? Or for example, for BSMD programs, they ask you, why are you applying to this program? And just through that, you can show, based on how you write and what you write, you can show that you're really invested in the field, which is exactly what they want to see.
Thank you. So that was all of the questions that we had regarding the college applications process specifically. So next up, we actually have Smera, who's going to be asking you questions about like tuition and extracurriculars and just overall preparation for college. Thank you.
Yeah, hi, I'm Samara, and so let's get started with the questions. So the first question is, when did you know like what you wanted to do, and how did it affect your extracurricular choices throughout high school? So when you wanted to know what you did, what you want to do, how did you think it would affect your whole life otherwise?
Yeah, so for me, I was kind of lucky in that I really already had an idea of what I want to do. When I was getting older, I kind of just loved the sciences, loved the maths. So it kind of just luckily felt right in line with me in high school. Like starting freshman year, I got into these different clubs. Like I joined a robotics team. I got involved in like I said, research and volunteering, and it was really nice that way. And then that kind of just built up over the years. I started doing more things I was interested in, taking classes I was interested in, and doing more things like outside of school. Like I went to these different programs, got some classes at other universities. And it kind of just all builds together when you find what you're interested in. Now, I know a lot of people won't know what they're interested in, which is completely fine. People go through college without even knowing what they want to study. And if you're in that boat, it's just going out and exploring things. Because if you don't explore, then you're never going to find out what you really enjoy. So just making sure you try new things, because you never know what you're going to like.
All right, so it seems to me that the extracurricular activities can actually help shape your way to college. Is that basically what you're trying to get across? That like
yeah, I think yeah. Sorry. Yeah, definitely. Like when you're doing extracurriculars, don't say I'm only gonna do this, this, and this. Just try different things. Maybe you'll like it. If you like, continue it. If you don't like it, don't continue it. And like for example, if there's something you've never tried, if you've never tried robotics, like I never did robotics before I went to high school. I ended up enjoying it. Like it's all about just venturing out and trying new things, and that might lead you to finding what you want to do.
All right, thank you for that one. What advice would you give to a student who's looking for scholarships or aid offers from other colleges? So what would you say to them if they were asking you for advice?
So a lot of colleges have merit-based things that you can apply to. Some have specifically you need to apply to those you need to apply to those scholarships and talk about like how you meet certain requirements they have. Other times it's just generally you apply to the school and then they'll give you financial aid. So for the latter one, I will talk about that first because it's more general. You just want to make sure you're a well-rounded student and that you're really invested into whatever it is you're doing. So for example, at, I don't know, say for example, University of Pittsburgh here, it's nearby. I got a full ride there and I just showed that I was like a really well-rounded student and I just talked about what I was interested in. But for example, in other schools, say Vanderbilt University, they have 3 specific scholarships you can apply to. There's one for leadership. I forget what the other 2 are, but each of them has their own traits. So you just need to figure out how those apply to you. And then in the essays they provide, just talk about how you demonstrate those traits and why you deserve to get them.
Thank you for that one. So I know tuition is a big thing in college, and that concerns a lot of students. Like, how did it concern you, and like, how did you go about it? Like, what did you do to make sure you were able to pay your tuition?
Yeah, that's a really good point. A question, sorry, because tuition is a huge worry for students across the country. So for me, I applied to tuition both within these schools and then also externally through my like high school. And then there's a lot of, if you just search on Google scholarships, you can find a ton of scholarships for high school students, for college students, and that can help alleviate a lot of the stress about tuition. I also applied to them within college. And then if you want me to speak on my personal, like for when I was trying to decide what to go on, where to go to school, the biggest thing for me was I was between two schools. One was Rutgers, because I had a full ride and a guaranteed seat in the BSMD program, versus Penn, which was obviously a lot more expensive. And so the reason I ended up going to Penn was because I had the potential to have 2 free years here, which would be really nice, versus the other school, because I thought it would be more for me in the long run. But any student, you can, if you just need to search and you can apply to different opportunities. Like, for example, there's the Coca-Cola scholarship. They offer, I think, $50,000 for a number of high school students every single year. You just need to look out and apply to these different programs.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for that one. So what do you think made you stand out, and how do you think you got the full rides in order to get into these colleges?
So in order to be a standout student, so you need certain foundational things. You need like a good GPA, for example. That's pretty central. You need good standardized testing scores, whether it be ACT, SAT, and then also, like, for example, SAT subject tests, AP exams. Those are the foundation towards building a good resume, towards being like a great student. And then on top of that, like I said, for me personally, I had like good GPA, good scores and all of that. And then just the amount of time I spent like doing different things in my field, like I said earlier, volunteering, clinical experience, shadowing. And then the big thing I had was research. Research is really hard to get as a high school student, because you don't really have that much experience. But it was just about, like, I cold emailed a ton of different professors at different universities near me. And it's just about going out and searching for these opportunities that you might get.
All right, that was some really helpful. Some really helpful advice. Thank you. Our last question for this topic, and then we'll move on to our next set of questions, is what advice would you give to a high schooler about like their study habits, their time management, their work ethic, how to like balance everything out? Because as a high school student, you would have a lot of stuff on your plate.
Oh yeah, high school is definitely a super busy time. You have between extracurriculars, school classes, you have so many different things going on at once, and you want to make sure you manage everything. So I say one big thing is make sure you're not doing too much. Like, you want to do everything you're interested in, but there's a point where it's too much. You want to be able to say, hey, what is really important to me? Is doing this random club 5 days a week, like, do I really enjoy that or do I not? You want to focus in and say, this is what I want to spend my time towards. Because especially, like, I'm sure you guys have all heard, junior year, people talk about how stressful junior year is. And between studying for the AP exam, studying for SAT or ACT, between all that, you just want to make sure and say, these are the things I really want to invest my time in, and then focus in on that. And then also build good study habits. Like, I know I procrastinate too, everyone does, but in reality, you want to try not to. You want to make sure you build good study habits. Don't wait till the last minute to do things, because especially when you get to college, having a good foundation for study habits is going to help you so much, because college is 10 times more work than high school. So if you didn't work in high school, it's going to be a lot harder to acclimate to the college process and how schools work and how classes work here.
Okay, that was some really good study tips and stuff like that. Thank you for that. Now Netra is going to be going on to our next topic about like other stuff like academics, extracurricular stuff like that. So I'll hand it off to her.
Thank you, Samira. So the first question is, how did you balance extracurriculars with your academics?
Yeah, so the big thing for me was academics always just kind of came first. You know, like, if you don't have good grades, you're not really like, that's kind of the foundation for everything else. You need a good, like, solid scores to start with. So that was just my primary focus. And then based on how much time I had on that, then I decided to explore other things. Like, I decided to go into these different clubs, try all these different activities. Like, for example, I did band since I was in 4th grade. And junior year, I decided to stop just because of how much time it took. Like I would spend like 15 plus hours a week and then my entire Saturday just between practices and competitions. And because of how much time that took, I decided my time would be better invested into other things I'm more interested in. So it's just all about just me making sure that you're doing what you really enjoy doing.
That's great advice. So the second question is, do you have any advice to give high school students about maintaining a balance between school and other activities?
Yeah, that's just the same thing. You don't want to overload yourself in school. I know you're going to see some people who take like 3,000 AP exams and do all this and that. You want to make sure you do as much as you can do. And that might be more than the person next to you. That might be less than the person next to you, but that's not what matters. You just want to do the best you can do what you're interested in, and try not to compare yourself to other people too much, because you need to push yourself to do the most you can do, you know?
That's amazing. Thank you. So the next question is, how important are extracurriculars in the application process, and how do you think high schoolers should select them?
So I'll start with the second part of that question first. How do you select them? Honestly, it's whatever you're interested in. Don't say, hey, I think this is going to look good on my college resume, and then do it because of that. I think you should just do whatever you're interested in. And then so a lot of those things might pertain to your resume, and that might look really good, like saying, oh, doing this club or competing at states or nationals in this and all that. But I think you definitely just focus on whatever it is that you really want to do. And sorry, what was the first part of that question?
How important are extracurriculars in the application process?
Yeah, so extracurriculars are pretty important. But like I said earlier, the GPA and scores are foundation to everything first. There's no point in spending all of your time on extracurriculars if your grades drop to C's, drop to D's. Like, that's not going to help you. But extracurriculars, like on the Common App on the Common App application, there's an entire section just to your 10 extracurriculars and what you like enjoy doing most significant to you. So you want to make sure you really do these things that you enjoy, because that also shows how you furthered your interests into whatever you want to do outside of just the classes you take in high school.
That's amazing. How do you plan to proceed in order to achieve your goal or your dream career?
Yeah, so for me personally, I want to get involved in research as a career. So that means after I graduate from Penn, I plan on going to an MD PhD program. And so right now, that means in college, I'm getting involved in clinical research. I'm applying to a couple of different labs that I want to get involved in. And it's just things like that, taking the classes that I'm interested in. And yeah, that's just a big thing, just doing exactly what I did in high school. But now that I'm in college, I have more opportunities, expanding my reach and just getting further involved in these things.
That's wonderful. So my last question is, what advice do you have to give high schoolers about achieving their dream career?
Yeah, I mean, I say the one big thing I would always say to everyone is keep your options open. Like, try new things. Don't say I'm only going to do this and I only want to go to this one school, because you never know where life is going to take you, because that might not be the best thing. For me, personally, Penn wasn't my number one school, but I love where I am right now. And I'm glad I chose Penn as a school instead of some other place that I could have gone. So it's just keep your options open, try new things, because that might be the next thing you love. That might be what you want to do as a career.
Thank you. So that's all the questions. So if anyone in the meeting would like to ask some questions, you can put it in the chat to me, Aman, Samira, or Raganti, so we can ask Harish.
One question, actually, I got it in my chat. So the question is, can you speak a little bit about high school AP courses and how they play an important role in college admission?
Yeah, so AP courses, you guys probably know this. So they give you college credit, which is really helpful. It lets you get out of the basic recs. So when you get into college, you can take higher level classes. And I think it's also really good to have AP classes when you're going through high school. For me personally, I took pretty much the most that you can take in my school. I think I took 15 different exams, 14 different classes. And I got 5s on pretty much all of them. So I think it's definitely a good idea to take AP classes, but don't overload yourself. Don't take 6 or 7 or even 5, 4, how many ever it is. Don't take too many in one semester, because bad scores are also going to get sent to colleges, and you just don't want like a bad GPA. Like, for example, if your grades drop from an A+ to an A- or an A- to like a high B+, then I would say take it. But if your grades are dropping from like an A+ to a B- when you switch to AP classes, that's probably not going to be worth it, because it'll just look bad.
Thank you. I also got another question, and it kind of builds off of what you were talking about, cumulative GPA. So does cumulative GPA, like throughout your entire high school career, does that matter more than individual like grades? Like which one do you think colleges would focus on more, and which one should be focused on more?
So a lot of times colleges are generally going to look at your cumulative GPA and also your GPA for each year. Like, for example, if they see that like your GPA, say you had a bad freshman year, but then it goes up, that's a good thing to them. That way they see that you struggled at first, but then you picked it up and you got better and better as you went. But for example, if they see that your GPA went up, and then senior year it tanked and it just dropped from like say an A- to like a C because you stopped trying, that's just a bad sign. But if you get one bad score here or there in a class, that doesn't really matter as much, as long as your overall GPA is still good.
I have another question over here. What is the first step to start SAT? And from when we can start giving the exams? Like, is it 7th grade or higher grades?
I mean, technically, I don't think there is a rule about when you can start giving the SAT exam. I took my first one in 8th grade just because that was the last time they offered the exam. But my real one, I ended up taking after the summer between sophomore and junior year. And I would recommend, what I personally think is best is that summer before sophomore to junior year, because it gets rid of a lot of the stress going into junior year. Because I know people talk about how junior year is the most stressful thing, and that a large part of that is because of these standardized exams. So just try and make sure you get it done before your junior year. If you're taking it during the year, that's fine, and a lot of people do that. But I would say like you don't need to start 7th, 8th, 9th grade. Like if you want to, you can. But personally, I don't think it's that necessary. And then speaking about that too, you also have the PSAT, which if you take the PSAT in 11th grade, it just gives you a chance to become like a national merit semifinalist or finalist, which can then earn you some other scholarship money.
I have
Okay,
one question.
I got a
Oh,
question.
sorry.
When should we when we do the college preparation, should we work towards the college we prefer or the field we select?
I mean, definitely the field you decide to move towards, because the college, it's hard to work towards, say, one specific college. Like I could say, hey, I want to work towards Harvard, but what does that really mean? Versus you say, I want to work towards a law. Like if I want to go into law, getting into that. It's like, I don't know. I feel like going towards one specific college, either it's not really that great of an idea. It's just like you want to show that you're invested in the field. And then when you're applying to the college, a lot of times colleges have this, hey, why do you want to apply to my school? Like, why Harvard? Why Penn? And you can show that you're invested in the college during those essays. But otherwise, your entire application should show A, who you are, and B, what you're interested in.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
another question we have here is, what is the difference between ACT and SAT? Like, what's the difference?
Okay, so ACT and SAT, they're two completely different exams, but colleges generally accept both. ACT runs up to the 36 scale, goes up to 36, and the SAT goes up to now 1600. So SAT has, it has 2 math sections, a writing/grammar section, a reading section, so that's 4 sections, and then it also has an essay that you write. The ACT, I didn't take the ACT, but if I remember correctly, it's a math, it's a reading, it's a science section, and then I think also a grammar section. So ACT, the questions are a lot easier, but it's a lot faster paced. SAT, the questions are a lot harder, but you have more time to do them. So I think it's personal preference. Some people do a lot better on the ACT, some people do a lot better on the SAT. I will say all colleges pretty much accept both of them, except more people score higher on the more people score at 36 than people who score 1600. But in reality, it really doesn't make all that big of a difference if you're scoring. And if you're at like a 1580, 1590, even like if you're above a 1550, I feel like it's not really that big of a difference in that top range. Like, so I feel like those like extra 10 to 20 points don't really mean that much. So don't stress too much about that. You don't need a perfect score to do well.
Thank you. One other question that was sent in was, do citizenship grades and like citizenship ratings count, or like, do you think colleges would ever look at that on your report card?
No, they won't. Wait, what do you mean by citizenship? Like if
I'm not sure the question was citizenship grades. I'm assuming they mean like an N or an O. Like I don't know. Some schools do that where they like rate citizenship, like how well you're doing in the class.
Oh, I haven't heard of that actually. I feel like if you're not behaving well in class, that's not a good thing. Because if you have like a lot of times like schools will report certain kids like, oh, if they did this or they did that, you know, they got in fights in school. Like that's never a good thing to have a college see, especially like say you're applying, you want to go to pre-med. You want to go in pre-med and take care of people, but you're getting in fights in school. Like that's not a good look. So you want to make sure that you're not like doing things like that could negatively affect you. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't actually heard of any schools that like send that in, but if they do, yeah, try not to.
And also like a follow-up, I feel like this would be more applicable to like high schoolers. So the entire like letter of recommendation, I feel like that's more of an applicable sort of related question. So how do you think people should go about, like, how do you think high school students should go about getting letters of rec? Like, how do you think they should act? And I'm sorry, there's ATV outside my window, but yeah.
Okay, so letters of rec honestly are huge in your application process. So the big thing you need to do is be able to get close enough to a teacher. You should talk to a teacher consistently, do well in their class. And then what I did was, for example, I talked to my AP Chem, my AP Bio teacher, and then my AP English Language and Composition teacher. And after my junior year, I emailed them like over the summer, I talked to them in person. That's what you definitely want to do. So talk to them in person, go up to them and say, hey, would you mind writing a letter of rec for me for college, right? And tell them this before the summer. So because all these teachers are going to get hundreds of students coming to them asking them for letters of recommendation. So give them the entire summer to work on the essays. They'll send them in whenever they want. But just be as nice and caring about it as possible, because they have a ton of other things going on. Because if you're like, hey, just write a letter of rec, they're not going to write a good letter of rec. You want to make sure it's someone who knows you and who's going to write good about you. And if there's something that you want them to emphasize, say you want them to emphasize that you're a good leader or that you're really good at this or that, make sure you tell them that, because they can write your essay around that idea.
Thank you so much. Two more questions. So one of them is there anything you can do in middle school to help on the college application process?
Not really. I mean, don't take this the wrong way, but I'm just going to say there are some random things you can there's some middle school competitions here and there if you're really invested in something. Like, I know there's something called the AMC 8, which is like a math competition, which a lot of people, like, if they do well on that, then they go to the AMC 10, the AMC 12, and all these other higher level math competitions. But it's not really middle school is kind of just a time to have fun, you know?
Okay, the follow-up question is, are there any popular websites that students can rely on that gives an overview of the college admission process in general and the general guidelines of the colleges?
So general guidelines, you can look to each college to see their average statistics and things like that, and to say, hey, this is the average GPA. This is how I compare this average SAT and ACT and all that. But in terms of the application process, I mean, you can probably Google it. There's tons of websites out there that say, hey, here's how you do this. One thing I would also recommend is when you're writing your Common App essay, a lot of times people have written guides on how to write your Common App essay, or there are examples of Common App essays out there. Definitely don't mind looking at those, just making sure you're doing the right thing, focusing in on your topic. But yeah, just search online. You can find anything. I can't tell you specific sites, but I can tell you each college will post their average scores for the year prior. And you can just use that to compare to see if you're a good fit or not.
Okay, so I have 2 more questions. When we choose an AP course, do we have to choose courses for multiple fields or just one field that we're interested in? Like, for example, if I liked biology and math, which AP course would I choose?
I mean, you can take as many as you want, as many as you're interested in. I told you, I took like 15 different exams. They don't offer 15 exams in science. So I had math, I had sciences, I had social studies, I had pretty much everything. So it's just whatever you're interested in, whatever you think you can keep up with.
Okay, thank you. And my second question is, when should we start the volunteer work hours? And is that related to the field we select, or can we do any community work?
So I feel like volunteering, no matter what, is just a good thing to get into. It's a good idea if you're interested in something specifically. It's a great idea. Like say you're interested, like I am, like say you want to go pre-med. It's a great idea to go into hospitals, get volunteering hours there, maybe be a scribe somewhere else. Like that's not a bad idea, but you can do it anywhere. I spent a lot of hours in a food pantry near me just because I wanted to help out there. And it's just like I also spent time in a blood drive. We would run one every single year. So it doesn't necessarily need to be in your field. It's just showing that you actually go out of your way to help the community around you. That's a great thing.
Harish, you did volunteer in hospitals shadowing doctors, right? From when did you start doing it and how did you get into that?
So I started first volunteering in 7th grade just because I worked in a nearby library. I would just go there like Saturdays for like 2 or 3 hours, just help them out, like shelving books and all that. Then 8th grade, I started in a hospital. And in 9th grade, I moved to like a big hospital in Philly nearby. And then also, that's when I also started the food pantry, just because it was like a nearby area, like 10 minutes from here. And it was just, they needed the help because they didn't have enough people there. So I just started helping out there. The shadowing I got involved in, I want to say my junior year, over the summer. I just reached out to nearby hospitals and we had some contacts. So they said I can come shadow. So for 2 weeks, I just went down there, shadowed different doctors every day. But it's like, there's never a too early, too late. Okay, there is a too early. Like in middle school, you don't need to start going to all these places, volunteering here and there to try and do everything. But like, it's just a good idea to get out there, just to help the community in any way you can.
Thank you. I have 2 questions that just came in. So first off, how many teachers or counselors do you think you should approach for like for letters of recommendation? Like how many do you think is a good number? How many is too much? How many is too little? Like what do you think is a good number for colleges?
Okay, so I will tell you, when I was visiting my one college, they told us about a student who sent in 34 letters of rec. That is just a terrible idea. Do not do that. Personally, I asked 4 teachers and I split them up. The most I ever sent to any one school was 3 letters of rec, because some of them asked for, say, 2 science teachers and 1 non-science. So I sent anywhere from 2 to 3 to most of my schools. Overall, I had 4 different teachers that I asked, just because certain schools ask only for the field you're interested in. Some ask for both the field you're interested in and ones you're not interested in. And others say anything is fine. So I had 2 STEM teachers, 1 English teacher, and my counselor. And I think that's a good mixture, to have like 1 the field you're interested in, 1 that's another field, and then your counselor you should always have a letter of rec from.
Thank you. And then the second question was going back to like what you were talking about like pacing your like volunteer hours and like all of that. At what point, what do you think is a good point or a good time to know what major you want to go into, or like what major you are interested in and want to apply for?
I mean, for every student, it comes at a different time. There's no set time. I came into high school thinking I wanted to be a doctor. I changed course slightly, and then I decided I wanted to go into research. That's not that big of a change. But there are people who go through, like, who apply to college. When you apply to college, you don't need to select a major. You can say, I'm undecided. I don't know what I want to do. And that's completely fine. In college itself, I still haven't even declared my major yet. Most places, you wait till at least your sophomore year to declare. Sometimes you wait till the beginning of your junior year. So there's never a too late thing to do. It's all just when you realize what you want to do, that's when you can declare.
And then there was another question that came in. So about how many volunteer hours do you think colleges would look for? What do you think is a good number? Like I know like a lot of high schools have like the minimum, like I know in California, like the minimum graduation is like 20 high school volunteer hours. But like, of course, that's probably not enough for a lot of colleges. So what do you think is a good ballpark number for volunteer hours, and how do you think that should be distributed, like in like different places?
I would stay away from putting a number on the, like, there's no such thing as a number of hours you need. It's just showing that over time, it's not like you just did like 100 hours one summer, or like say in 1 month and just never went back to it again. It's just showing over time you continually went back there and helped out there. It's just showing that it's something you're actually interested in. I'm not going to tell you my numbers just because I don't want you guys to say, hey, that's how many hours I should be putting here. That's how much I need to do this. Colleges don't have a strict say. They're not like, hey, if you don't have 100 hours, we're going to reject you. Or if you don't have 200 hours, we're going to reject you. It's just how much time do you have and how dedicated do you want to show that you are there? Yeah. So just don't worry about the numbers.
All right, so one question I have is, how would you like try and organize yourself while through high school? Like, what is one way to make sure that, like, even if you are like organizing yourself, but like the work is just getting like, because there's a lot of work in high school. Like, I've been told by some of my high school friends, they always say, oh, I've been organizing myself, but I feel overloaded no matter what. How do we avoid that?
Like, once again, it's just setting your priorities. If you think what you're doing is too much, then maybe it's time you have to drop something. And it's like, there are going to be stressful months. I will say everyone goes through stressful months where they're like, I have so much to do. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get everything done. But you need to realize when it's it's just a short period of time, then I'm going to get through it, versus I can't do it at all. It's just way too much for me. So it's just being able to identify at what point is your breaking point, and then identifying, hey, maybe I should stop doing this because it's taking too much time, or maybe I should stop doing it because for my mental health, or maybe it's just not worth it anymore.
Follow-up question that someone else put in is that, can you drop a course in high school in the middle of the semester? So I am like, yeah, go ahead.
I think it depends on each school's policy, but for the most part, there should be at least 1 to 2 week ad drop period in the beginning of the semester, where schools, they'll let you say, hey, if you don't like this class, you can drop it, pick up another class, and it doesn't go on your transcript. But when you say the middle of the semester, I want to think that it's going to go on your resume that you dropped it, and I would not recommend doing that.
Thank you. Is that all the questions we have, or?
No, I got a couple of questions.
Yeah, and probably we can open the floor to everyone also to ask.
Okay, can I start with my questions first? Okay, so with one of the questions I got was specifically about extracurricular activities. Will colleges look for how long you did it or for what you achieved when doing it?
Definitely both, I would say. Like, it doesn't matter, like, if you only do something for 1 year, and then, like, say I only played tennis for 1 year, right? And then say I only played freshman year and that's it. And then I want to say, hey, look, I want to play tennis at your school. That's not a good look, because you want to show that you're interested in, right? So for example, I played tennis all 4 years, besides this last year because of COVID. And like, we were PAC champions twice. Like, that's a good thing that you achieve. But it's not like, it's a mixture of both. So even if you don't achieve all that much, but you still do it for 4 years, that shows that you're still super interested in it. And that's a good thing. But if you don't do it for enough time, like say you only do it at the end of high school because you found out about it late, that's fine. But if you only do it at the beginning and that's it, and you just show no interest at all afterward, that's not a good look.
Okay, thank you. Another question was, what are a couple ways to get an internship according to the field or major we picked?
So internships are all about A, just looking online, and B, just reaching out. A lot of the times, you can just get amazing opportunities just by cold emailing people. So just like, you might not know them, just send them an email. Maybe like, I was like this, for example, this past spring, before COVID happened, I was supposed to get an opportunity in a research lab nearby. And I got that just by randomly emailing some professors at a nearby university, and they said yes. So it's just all about just going out, search on Google, say, hey, there's a big company near me. Maybe they're willing to let me like spend some time, their internship there, and then just go about it that way. There's no set in stone way to do it. There's no like, hey, do A, then do B, then do C, then do D. It's just, hey, there's an opportunity, go take it.
Okay, thank you. Another question was, do you recommend to take outside classes on English for 7th graders?
Not really. I mean, I feel like it's 7th grade, nothing really like, just looking back on it, nothing you do in high school really matters that much. I mean, if you want to because you're really interested in English, I'd say go for it. Like if you really want to learn more about it, or if you're not as strong in it and you want to get better, go for it. But don't do it for the sole purpose of thinking about college, because nothing you do in middle school matters. But if you want to get better at it, then go for it.
Okay, thank you. I have one last question. For a student who do not have good academic scores, what do you suggest to get good at it and for future studies?
So it's all about just make sure if you don't have good scores, it's about make sure you put the time actually towards studying, towards like preparing for exams and all that. And make sure you review, like one thing that might help you a lot is reviewing with other people, because they might be able to answer the questions you have. They might be able to help you learn how to study and help you study properly to actually do well in the exams. And because even if you don't have good grades now, if you improve in the future, that's always a good thing. And then also, even if your GPA isn't amazing, say when you're applying to college, that's not necessarily like saying, oh, you're not going to get in no matter what. Because your essays are also a huge factor of your application. So if you really write an amazing essay, show who you are, show what you're interested in really, really well, that's a great thing. And that might get you into college alone. Because I know, for example, there's at Penn State nearby, Penn State Honors College called Schreier's. They don't take scores at all. All it is you write 3 800-word essays and you submit them, and they accept you or deny you based on those essays alone. Like, your scores have nothing to do with that process. And like, that's just one of the examples. So a lot of schools are also going to, for example, especially because of COVID or even normally, they don't require you to have like SAT or ACT scores. And that could be a good thing for you. If you don't score well on them, you don't need to send them in. Just make sure you show who you really are based on these essays.
Oh wow, that's amazing. Thank you. That's all the questions I got. Samira, Aman, did you guys get any?
I have one more question. This is from someone. This is like an extracurricular sort of thing, and it says, should I focus on at least one sport like basketball, other than what I currently have been doing, karate, for the past 7 years?
I mean, if you've been doing karate for 7 years, that probably, like, if you really enjoy karate, go for it. If you enjoy basketball, go for it. It's just whatever you're interested in. Don't like pick up something just for the sake of picking it up and saying, hey, I'm doing it for the sake of doing it. Do it because you're interested in it. Like, I played tennis for like 7 or 8 years because I enjoyed doing it. I didn't do it just for the sake of saying, hey, college might like it. It's just showing that you're really interested in it, you know?
All right, one more question that I have here. What are the best resources to improve essay writing? And we have one more question after that, but just for that one.
So essay writing, if you mean like in terms of like for a class specifically, just practice. The only way you get better at writing is by writing more, by reading more. The more you read, the more you write, the better you're going to get at writing. That's all I can say about that. And then also having peers or someone else just read over your essays telling you how to improve. If you're messing up your grammar, then you're going to look out for that more next time. If you're messing up on the content of what you're writing, you just need to start thinking more before you write. So it's just all about going back, finding your that's the big thing. You need to find your mistakes, identify your mistakes, and then implement changes when you're doing this, when you're going back and writing next time. Just don't do the same thing over and over again, because that's not going to get you anywhere. More for college applications, if you want to improve your essays, A, spend more time on them, but B, the reason I say start early, start during the summer, is because it gives you more time to think. Like, say, for example, what I did was I'd write my essay, right? Then I give myself a few days break. Then I go back to it, look at it from a fresh lens. So make sure you have that time, and also go to your teachers, ask them for advice. Say, hey, would you mind looking over this and giving me advice on how to change it?
Okay, one last question for me is from my chat is, what if you're great at your extracurricular activities, you got all the achievements, you're just great, but your academics aren't good? Like, or it could be the other way around. Like poor in academics, but great at extracurricular. Great at academics, but poor at extracurricular.
Yeah, being great in any one thing is still really good if you want to go into that. You want to make sure you want to show colleges also you're not just a one-sided figure, like you're not terrible at everything. You still want to show that, hey, I can still do this kind of well. Even if it's not amazing, you can still kind of do it. But say you're an amazing athlete. Say you're you're a 5-star recruit right now. You want to go to a D1 college. The way you're going to get in is if you already have that athletic background, all you need to do is just not fail your classes. Show you can not fail your classes, then they'll accept you and you can play sports there, whatever it is. So you don't need to be a standout in everything that you can do. As long as you're if you're really, really good at one thing, just make sure everything else isn't lagging too far behind.
Okay, does anyone else have any questions? Aman, Netra, Raganti, anyone else?
No, I don't think there are any more questions. Again, if anyone has any final questions before we start wrapping up, just feel free to send them to Raganti, Netra, me, or Smera.
I have one more question.
Oh, okay.
So for the colleges, do they is the science Olympiad really important to them?
If you compete in science Olympiad and you do well, say you go to states, say you go to nationals, say you even win your school competition, say you even participate, I say if you enjoy it, put it down. It's a good thing. If you compete in science Olympiad and you really enjoy it, that's a good thing to have. If you don't enjoy it, then don't do it.
Cool, thank you. That's all for me.
I have 2 more questions here. So the first one is, if you have poor or average grades, how do you think colleges would see those? A college would say if they saw poor or average grades.
It all depends on the college. Say your GPA is, I'm just going to say 3.x, right? They're going to compare you to the other students applying to that school. Some school might have a 3.9 average, some school might have a 3.1. It's all about how you compare to the students that are applying there. And then beyond your grades, it's also just about how you present yourself as well. If you write really good essays, if you say, hey, look at me, I'm showing you who I am in these essays, this is what I'm interested in, then you have a great shot of getting in. If not, then I don't know. It's just there's more than just GPA. That could be a foundational building block, but that's not the only thing that matters.
Okay, thank you. Final question from me for now is it a must to have a sports, is it a must to have a sports, I don't know, they didn't really say, but is it a must to have sports at a school level?
You don't need to if you're not interested in it. I have friends at Penn who've never played a sport in their life, and that's because they weren't interested in it. Say it looks good, it's a good idea, it looks good for college if you're playing a sport, you're competing, you win packs or whatever competition you have around you, that's a good thing. But it's not a must. There are so many students who are successful without ever playing sports.
Thank you. I think we wanted to end at 5, so I think we might start wrapping up. However, there is this Google form where if there are any more questions, please feel free to fill out this Google form. And also it asks for your emails if you are interested in any further seminars. So if you have any other questions, please put them into there. And yeah.
Also, just one quick question, Harish. It's not just high school, right? It always depends from your childhood. So any best practice you have done at your end, to see wherever you are right now, getting 8, I think it's not just 5 colleges, you got in many colleges, full 8, right? What is a good practice you have done from your childhood?
Okay. I mean, I guess one thing was my dad would always like when I was young, he would just make me like just sit down and do work, just like whatever it was. Just like do like for example, if I was in like third grade, do like fifth grade math, fifth grade reading, just like I would just like from a young age, I would learn to like sit down and just work and just like and then I learned like put work first, and then once I'm done that work, I can go out and play. So it's just like it taught me to like prioritize and make me realize what's important in like what actually matters. And then also like I still enjoyed myself. I didn't sit home studying all day. I'd study for a little bit and then I'd like enjoy myself. So then you would like it teaches you like what actually matters, like, and also teaches you like for me, I learned that I was really interested in math and science at a young age. And that was good for me, helped me figure out what I want to do. So that was also a good thing. But like it's not necessarily a must, as long as like even in high school, you can develop those skills then. I know people who didn't do any of that when they were young in high school, then they taught themselves to study properly and then they did well.
Thank you, Harish.
Is that all? Any more questions?
And again, if you have any further questions or are interested in any further seminars, please fill out the form, and like if you want, you can forward it. Yeah, just if you're interested or have any other questions, please put them into that form. And now I think we're going to wrap up. So Netra, I guess you go. Thank you.
Yes, so to conclude this meeting, I want to say thank you to Harish for your time and for your patience and really helpful advice. I also want to thank Pragnya Cultural Society for giving us the opportunity to do this. Yeah, thank you. And thank you all for coming.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you all for having me. And if you have any questions, I can drop my email in the chat if you just want to email me anything.
Sure, Harish.
So there's that. If you ever have any questions, just email me. I'm happy to help out. And thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you, Harish. And everyone, on behalf of Pragnya Cultural Society, we want to inform you, we will be having a series of webinars like this. So please let us know which topic you want to have a discussion on. We will try to get the SMEs in that particular area, and we will have a session. So in the Google form, whichever Aman has provided, please do list out which area you're looking at. So we will try to put out everything together, and whatever is requests are more, we will try to have webinars on that. So spread the word across your friends, talk to your family, everyone, and we want many to benefit from these sessions. We have great people around with lots of information. It's just that information has to be shared. So we want to use this particular form to spread that information and help others in the community. So please fill out the form, and please do let us know what area you're looking at. It's not only for high school students, middle school students, basically all students. Whichever you're looking at, please do let us know, and we are here to help you. And Harish, it's really wonderful. Thank you all for the thank you for the great inputs, Harish and Aman, Meera, Netra. Good job conducting and hosting it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was really fun doing this, and I just wanted to say thank you to Harish as well.
Yeah, thank you again. Thank you to Daganti and Pragnya Cultural Society for providing us with this opportunity. It definitely was beneficial, I'm sure, to everyone who is in this meeting. And also thank you, Harish, a lot. A lot of your answers are really helpful, and I'm sure they cleared up a lot of doubts for everyone regarding like high school, the college process, the application process, and just overall deciding like what career. And yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm happy to help, guys. Oh, sorry.
I just wanted to say, yeah, thank you so much for coming today, and it was very useful for all of us.
Yeah, that's what I'm here to do. I'm happy to help, guys. It's a pleasure to help out other students because, trust me, I know exactly what it's like to go through the college applications process. It's pretty stressful, especially when you don't know what you're doing. So yeah, thank you guys for having me again.